Live and in color from the NBC News radio broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in beautiful Southern California, and in parallel from the Turf's Up radio studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone Show this evening. So welcome to the Water Zone Show this afternoon, and good afternoon to everybody, good evening to everybody, and also good morning, depending upon where you are from. If you listened to the show last week, we had some people calling in at their time, 2:30 in the morning from Kenya, to be on the show, and that was a pretty exciting show about a village who teamed up with a faith-based charity here in the United States called Global Waterworks, and they got to put in, actually they put in 5 rain collector systems and purification systems in 5 different villages, which holds about 400 people each. So that was a pretty interesting thing. So thank you for joining us. Chris, how are you doing today? Mr. David?
I'm doing great. Thanks very much, Rob, and hats off to you for manning the mic solo last week. I had a medical procedure I had to do during that day. Everything is fine, Rob, so don't worry about it for our listeners. But you did a great job. I'm sorry I missed that one because it was on atmospheric water generation. You know that's kind of a topic that I like, Rob, but I listened to it, and it was a great episode.
Yeah, the gentleman Festus from Kenya was an impressive person. I mean, he's a school teacher there, and he gathered a bunch of people together to learn about the systems that was designed here in the United States and how to install them and maintain them. And it was an awesome story, and they're still working together to do some more villages. So the way he told the story for our listeners who maybe did not catch that episode, the people from the village have to walk hours and miles to go get water, fresh water, and bring it back to their village. So this is going to help them tremendously. Anyway, 2 weeks before that, if you listened in, it was our 10th year, 500th show anniversary, and we promised we have some prizes for some people, and we're going to give 3 away today and name 3 of the winners. And then next week, I should have the confirmation of receiving the other items. And I don't want to issue something that I don't personally have in my hands that I can turn around and ship out to these people. But I'll start off with the first person. And one of the winners, his name is Sally Hellman, and she's from Brandon, Florida. And she happens to be winning a Toro 60-volt battery-powered blower. And so if she has things to blow off her yards or grass or any of this thing will help her out tremendously. And then Chris is going to do another one, and then I have another winner also to name. So congratulations to Sally.
All right. Big congratulations to Sally. The second winner number 2, is Kurt Schmidt, and Kurt is from Salem, Oregon. He has won a Toro trimmer, battery-operated trimmer, and Kurt is on the landscape committee in an HOA, and he's a listener of ours and enjoys the show and appreciate it. Congratulations to you, Kurt.
Yep. And so the next winner is a gentleman named Mark Richmond, and he's in Lawton, Oklahoma. I can't give out his full address over the air because we want to keep the privacy going. But he says he's a longtime listener, and he thought he was living in a crazy state about water, but when he heard about the stuff that goes on in California, he feels a whole lot better where he is. And he wins a Toro 60-volt lawnmower. So that's going to be nice. Hope he can use it. Unless he has artificial turf, which in then turn will probably sell it or give it to a brother-in-law or somebody. But anyway, we hope he does use it. It's a good product. All of these are the new technology developed by the Toro company in their 60-volt program that they've done, and they make excellent products. I happen to own a blower. I actually bought it at a dealer. I did not get it through my work, but because my wife wanted it that day. And if you're married and you have a wife that's a nice lady and she tells you to go do something and you want to stay married for more than 40 years, you go do it that day. So that's what I did. I went to a dealer in Phoenix and picked one up, and it's a great machine. So anyway, thank you very much, and thank you to the Toro Company for those donations for the prizes. We do appreciate it. And listen in next week, and we'll give you some more winners on some other products that we got going. One is a outdoor lighting system. It's a 6-pack of outdoor lighting with a transformer. And then there's a smart irrigation controllers and things that we'll be giving away. And we'll continue to do this for one or two more weeks and spread everybody out so they get a good thank you for listening into the show and enjoying it. Anyway, we have Miss Chris Austin, who is the purveyor of Maven's Notebook, one of our regulars, and she was on our anniversary show, as she should be. And we want to welcome her again. She's an integral part of the show. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
All right, Chris.
Getting warm in there in Arizona?
112, staying steady.
Oh. Yeah, well, how lovely for you.
Well,
Yes.
you know, I've learned something being older. My car has air conditioning. My house has air conditioning. the stores I go to have air conditioning. So if I can make it 10 seconds out my front door to my car, I'm fine. But you know, it's really interesting. You know, you mentioned something about the temperature, because where I live near some mountains. It's called the White Tank Mountains. And what's interesting about that, about 4 o'clock every afternoon, we get a nice breeze coming through, and it's a dry heat. So it's not like being in Houston where you got perspiration coming down from yourself because it's so hot and all of that. But it's nice when you live here and you're here for a while. It doesn't bother you anymore. No, I think people that play at the 2 golf courses I have in my private community, I think they're crazy at 112 to 116 degrees, and it gets hotter, which is really weird. It gets hotter towards 3 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon here. Not like California, where at noontime it starts to get warm, really warm. But I can't understand some of these. I guess they really like the sport. They're out there playing and in that kind of heat, and I don't know how they do it. I can't do that. So I'll turn it over to you. What's new in California with water news?
Well, I think the biggest thing that happened was last week. The state released its latest proposed update to the Bay Delta Water Quality Control Plan, which is sort of the plan to manage the Delta. And, you know, just to remind everyone, the Delta is this area where the 2 largest rivers in California come together, they meet, and then they flow out to the ocean. Or so they are supposed to flow out to the ocean, and that was what nature intended. But we put in a lot of these diversions that divert water now, so there's a lot of regulations now that govern how water is moved around the Delta. The most impactful is that the export pumps that take the water from the Delta to send it to Southern California and the San Joaquin Valley, those pumps are located at the south end of the Delta, sort of at the bottom, all the way over to the right, if you're looking at a map. And the Pacific Ocean is all the way over on the left on that map. So when they turn those pumps on in the South Delta, it can actually make the water stop going out towards the ocean and loop back towards the pumps. Which is not a good thing for migrating fish that are trying to go out to the ocean, because they kind of find themselves, running around in a circle, so to speak. So these regulations really cover things like salt, salinity in the water, temperature, dissolved oxygen, and things like that. And and so this plan is managing this area, this Delta, trying to figure out how to manage it, and all of the things that have to be done at the same time while it's sending large amounts of water out to the San Joaquin Valley in Southern California. They've been trying to update this plan since 2009. Yes, that is 2009. But that for 15 years now, 16 years. In part, it's just a difficult task to undertake, but I think there's also been a little foot dragging going on because the state is really hoping to come to an agreement with the farmers and the large water diverters in the Sacramento Valley they have a big plan where they're kind of saying they're going to give up some water, give up some, build some habitat. There's a lot of things. They're going to have a science program that's going to go and see what they can do to make better. it's a pretty comprehensive plan. And the state has been hoping that they could approve this as an alternative to the usual way that they regulate things in the Delta. It's hugely controversial. The environmentalists don't like it. In particular, when they were the group that came together to put the water and habitat stuff on the table, so to speak, they didn't include environmental groups or tribes in their work as they came together to try to put together this proposal, and they have really taken a lot of heat for that. Not that I know this to be true. This is just my guess, but I think that they did it that way because it's too hard to get all the farmers and the large water diverters to agree to something when you have people like the environmental groups and tribes in the room telling you it's not enough, that they want more. So I think that they just said the best way we can do this is let's get ourselves organized, and then we'll present it to the world. So here it is. It's presented to the world. It's still very controversial. We just don't know what's going to happen now with that. So a lot remains to be seen. Most importantly, to me, what remains to be seen is if the federal government is going to actually participate. I did have somebody that went and looked into things and said that as of now, Reclamation's money that they were going to put up for this is still there, and they're still moving forward. I have a hard time believing that because that doesn't seem to be the way things are going in this administration. But that is the news that I have, and I hope that it's correct and it will continue. But a big gnarly situation.
I'd say, Chris, I'm very attentive to Maven's Notebook every day for sure because it's a great clearinghouse for water issues. But I got to ask you a question, right? Not a red letter week on the Notebook for sure, right? No big breakthrough stories or anything like that. But there was a lot of content on groundwater, right? Especially on the Daily Digest. So one of those stories I read, which is perplexing to me, and that's the reason I'm going to ask you this question, is I read a story about groundwater being a major contributor to sea level rise. And I read it, and I'm not going to question the content of it, but man, I'd sure like to get your take because I really didn't put those two together, right? Groundwater pumping and sea level rise. I haven't put them together before, but what's your take?
Yeah, I thought that's pretty amazing. I'm not really surprised because we do pump a lot of groundwater, and it goes out. It doesn't necessarily go back in. But I was actually sort of surprised and a little bit unnerved by that. But that also kind of tends to go with the story that was in a couple weeks ago, how it was the groundwater or the ocean water is tipping the poles of the planet. What was that? My mind is going a little soft on me.
Right.
But it's a tremendous amount of water that that has been in the groundwater aquifers, and that has been steadily drained, and most of that goes out to the ocean. I mean, think not only in California, but in the Midwest, down the Missouri River, out to the ocean. That's a pretty stunning thing that they statistic that they came across. Also, that large portions of the Earth, twice the size of California, are drying out. Gosh, now I can't remember how much that is. But yeah, it's
I don't remember the facts much, but I do remember reading about the drifting or the wandering magnetic north and south pole. But that's been happening for eons and eons, and just the connection between that was great to read. I'm going to tell you all of our listeners that if you get a chance, go on Maven's Notebook, look up that story, groundwater
on
pumping.
Monday.
Yeah. It went
It was
on the
on
28th, didn't it? It was on the digest on the 28th, Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Just
Monday's big thing.
Yeah, a great story though. What else you got, Chris?
Let's see. Oh gosh, they're working on putting those solar panels over the aqueducts in the Central Valley. So we're gonna see how that works. A lot of people are excited about this. But it's not necessarily a slam dunk. I mean, one of the problems that they're having in the Central Valley right now is that the canals are sinking due to land subsidence and groundwater pumping.
Yeah.
So placing heavy panels along the sides of the canals may not be a helpful thing, given the subsidence that is occurring. So that's kind of problematic for some areas. But where this could work, I mean, it really seems like it would be a very good win-win situation if they can figure out all the details.
Yeah, that's up through Hickman, I believe. Is that correct? Somewhere in that territory?
Well, this is in the Turlock district, which is, that's over south of Fresno, I believe, north of Fresno. Turlock, I think.
Well, good
I'm
idea.
Sorry. It's over there in the Central Valley somewhere.
Well, speaking of that, I was reading a thing that you wrote about the proposed Delta Water Project raising concerns for Cortland's Pear community. And I guess they're worried about the Delta Conveyance Project's gonna mess up their business in that area.
A lot of farmers in the Delta are very concerned about the Delta Conveyance Project and what it means to have that kind of construction going on in the Delta. I mean, there's no way you could build a tunnel through the Delta without having some impacts, and that's sort of the thing that the farmers are most concerned about. The Delta is kind of a gnarly mess. It'll be interesting to see how it all works out.
And we probably won't know that for many years. the way the legal does it and everything. It's just a shame. I mean, how long? This project has been going on and talked about for decades.
Yeah, it started with Arnold Schwarzenegger, believe it or not, and with the two big tunnels going through the Delta, and it's been trimmed down and pared down over the years. The general feeling that I have heard listening to some of the meetings at Metropolitan is if this project doesn't happen before the end of Governor Newsom's governorship, then it's probably unlikely that the next governor is going to take up this project and try and continue it, since it's been a point of fail for the past three governors that have tried to do this. So, and there are some very real issues that they have in order to get this thing done, issues that really require a legislative fix. And they tried to run them through on a budget trailer bill earlier this year, and that was very unpopular, and it did not succeed. But I think that they're going to have to make another run at that. If they can't get these issues cleared, and the only way to clear them is through legislation, then it's going to be impossible, I think, to build the tunnel.
Does the vote have to be a majority, or is there a certain percentage?
Well, it would have to.
Because one side in charge of all the government. I mean, that's one party basically rules it. So is that not enough, or what do they need?
There will never be a legislative action on the Delta Tunnel. The legislature does not approve or disapprove the tunnel. That is a project that's being pushed by agencies within the government, but it's controlled by permitting processes. It does not need legislative approval per se to proceed. the problems that they're having, one of them is that the DWR does this kind of weird court filing where they file this thing in court, and somehow it's to what's the word, confirm that they have ability to issue bonds to finance the project. It's some sort of obscure, sort of lawyery thing that has to be done. But they have, but anytime there's an entrance of this project into the courts or into an agency where there's public hearings and public meetings, then the Delta people are right there. And they protested this court action. They actually it's been accepted to appeal, but they say that in order to resolve this, it's going to take 5 years to resolve this through the courts. So that's one of the things that they're trying to push through the legislature. Is now that bill would have to be passed, I think, by a simple majority in the House. But this is a controversial project, and whether it would fly or not is really anyone's guess. If it had to come up to the full legislature for a vote, which is why they were pushing the budget trailer bill a few weeks ago or a few months ago, because the budget trailer bill gets stuck into the budget, and then the lawmakers have to, if they're going to approve the budget, they have to approve the budget trailer bills as well. It's sort of a sneaky way to get things passed that, you don't really want to have come up for a floor vote. They do it, at the state level. They do it at the federal level. I imagine that this sort of thing is possible in probably just about every state in the union. There's nothing new about it, but what it is it's trying to get something over the line that probably wouldn't make it under normal public processes by sticking it in the bill that the legislators have to vote on in the whole package.
Wow. So more years to come and more money spent on litigation, and we'll maybe have an answer in 5 years. So.
Well, no, I think we're going to have an answer by next year if they can't get this thing across the line. I think it's going to be highly doubtful that the next governor is going to say, hey, I think I'm going to take that up. And I also think that it's just going to be time Metropolitan and other people are just going to have to figure something else out. I mean, they can't wait another 5 years for the possibility that it might get built. And once it gets built, it's got a 15-year construction schedule. So, I mean, what we're talking about now wouldn't even be operational until 2040. Well, that's a long ways off. Wait, 5 more years? Now you're 2045. It's like it's getting pushed off, further and further off into the distance.
Do you think someday they're going to say, with all the people leaving California, there's no reason to build it?
I don't think people are leaving California.
Really?
Well, some people are leaving. People are leaving California, but people are also coming to California. The PPIC just did a report a few days ago that, and what's happening is the Republicans are leaving California, but more Democrats are moving in their place. I'll just say this. I've been living in California for, 35 years now. How many times over the years have I heard people talking about the demise of California? It's so horrible. Look, everybody's leaving. Nobody wants to live there. Yeah. I'm not seeing deserted streets around here. Okay. California is doing just fine, and is going to continue to do just fine, no matter what everyone else in the country wants to say about it. If you don't want to live in California, don't live in California. But they've been projecting California is going to go down the tube for decades now. It's yet to happen.
No, that's true. I thoroughly enjoyed living in California. I liked that I was close to the beach. I liked that I was close to the ocean. I'm happy that we were close to mountains. Nice weather. I mean, it's a beautiful place to live. No question about it. And whether you go down the coast to La Jolla, San Diego, go up north, past San Francisco to Monterey and other places, and even in the middle of the state, it's a nice place to live. But I don't know. It just seems that they have a lot of politics, and I won't get into politics, but there's a lot of that goes around, and projects take forever to get done, and people get tired of that. Anyway, I'll move away from that. But Chris, we thank you very much for coming on the show again and doing that. I know you're a regular, and we appreciate that a lot. And again, I want to thank you for being on our anniversary show. We really appreciate that. And for our listeners, please go to mavensnotebook.com. You can become a subscriber, get the latest in water news every single morning. It's free. And if you have a nice little heart and you want to subscribe a little to it, please do so. Go to the same thing, mavensnotebook.com, and there's a way to get to a website that'll let you do that. It's well worth it. Chris and I, it's our water Bible every single day that we read, and it gives us lots of information. And a lot of people commented when we asked them on the contest to send in what they liked about it. We got a lot of reviews saying that you were awesome, which we already know. But that was one of the that was one of the reasons they liked listening to the show. Seriously, we had a lot of that. So I just want you to know that.
Thank you, everybody. That's made my day.
You got great listeners. So we will talk to you next week. You have a great, cool weekend, if it's going to be that way where you live. And we appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right. Good night, everyone.
You're awesome, Chris. Have a great week.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a little commercial break, and we'll be right back with a featured guest. That's going to be a very interesting conversation. Nice gentleman, and we'll be back in about 1 minute, so stick around.
At SiteOne, we're continuously improving our digital features to make your business run smoother and save you time. Our updated account dashboard has streamlined some of the most important information for faster access to the things you need regularly. The 3 widgets at the top of the dashboard cover your purchase summary, credit information, and partners program points accumulation, all up to date by the minute. When orders come in, you'll see these widgets update as well. We want to protect your privacy, so the information is hidden by default. Click the Show button to see the specific numbers, such as year-to-date purchases, last year's purchases, and 12-month purchases. You can also click into the View All option. When you click View All, it will take you to the Account Overview page, where you can see all your sales information as well. Going back to the account dashboard, you can also review your credit information. You can view your credit limit, credit balance, and your open to buy based on that limit. Like the Purchase Summary widget, you can click the View All button to go into the Account Overview page from here as well. The third and final widget is SiteOne's Partners Program widget. Here, you'll be able to view your total available partners points based on your purchases for the current year, as well as the dollar amount. You can also view your enrollment status. Additionally, you can access your Partners Points dashboard from this widget, which shows you all your information, including what you can redeem points for, how to redeem points, see expiring points, and view overall perks like business solutions and free marketing tools. If you don't have online access to your SiteOne accounts or are not a current SiteOne account holder, request access or sign up today at siteone.com/online.
All right, so welcome back to the second half of the Water Zone Show. We really appreciate you people calling in and following us, and it makes it enjoyable to do the show for you guys and ladies, and we appreciate that very much. Anyway, we have a special featured guest today. His name is Tom Lyons. He's the founder and principal of a company called Veritas Advisors, and he's up in the Bay Area of California, and we want to bring him on and find out all the neat things he's working on. Tom, welcome to the Water Zone Show.
Thanks, Robert. Thanks, Chris. It's a pleasure to be on. Thanks for having me.
Maybe you can give a little brief history on what your company does and how did you enter into that field?
Absolutely. I've been identifying and analyzing and investing in solutions to make our water and our power grids stronger and more resilient, really since I left college 35 years ago. I can remember sitting in classes, and about half of them, mainly in the liberal arts it for granted that unpriced natural capital, in particular clean water and clean air, had lots of value, which seemed like common sense. And I remember sitting through many other classes that had more to do with finance and economics, which tried to simplify away the problematic nature of knowing how valuable these critical resources are. And that fascinated me and bothered me. And I moved to San Francisco in 1990 to find a way to get involved in reconciling those two views. And to put a finer point on it, the answer has been innovative solutions, investing in them, as I say, both for more efficient energy, but also for more efficient water systems. Veritas is an advisory that I set up last year after creating many investment strategies related to energy transition and to fresh water. I'd always done those types of investment in public markets, big, large cap type capital structures. And what I really increasingly felt I wanted to do was to find smaller, more innovative, more focused companies, typically privately owned ones, that are really driving the most important solutions today. So I set up Veritas as a consultancy to help me provide competitive and financial strategy that is advice along those lines to these smaller companies.
What, if I can ask, what dollar range of companies that you invest in, or you have your group of people that you use them for the dollars? You know, is it like 100,000, a million, 20 million, a billion? You know, what range when you start looking for a business? Obviously, the technology is important and there's a value to that, but where in the market do you fit in on the dollar side?
I'm glad you asked that question, because the companies that I focus on are in an inefficient part of the capital market that has a hard time raising money. I focus on what we call late-stage venture, so well after the first round of funding that most startups receive, into what we call the lower middle market. So these are going concerns, they're profitable, but they may only have a couple $100 million a year in revenue. So the specific answer would be $10 or $20 million of revenue on the small side and a few $100 million on the large side.
Okay. Chris, why don't you jump on in?
Yeah. Hey, Tom, welcome to the Water Zone. Great to have you on, sir. So I'm going to ask you a question. What's the definition of the word Veritas? I mean, where did that come from? There's got to be a story there, Tom.
There is a story. I'm glad you asked. So Veritas, at the most superficial level, means green in Latin. And the connection to my business is that most of the businesses that I consult would consider themselves green businesses. They're not necessarily only renewable energy companies, but they do categorically make our grids more resilient and more efficient. And when I think of green, I think of resiliency and efficiency. The second connection is I went to a high school who had a motto that was Semper Veritas, which means, in effect, truth is ever renewing. So in that translation, green means ever renewing. You might otherwise say sustainable. And I would also consider the companies I serve sustainable across the board.
All right. I mean, I've got to say I cheated and read that on your website, but I just want our listeners to hear that story. So just taking a higher level view at this, right? You focus on the water and energy sector, if you will, and most of us who are in this industry, we know our industry is poised for investment, right? So, I mean, the first question is, what's sort of the scale of this investment, Tom, from your position, from your standpoint and viewpoint? Is it billions? Is it trillions? I mean, what's the scale?
The scale is undoubtedly in the trillions, and to be more specific would require putting a time frame around it. I think the solutions that I hope we'll talk about today are going to be invested in for generations into the future. As I know everyone knows, the energy and water systems are constantly having to adapt and become more efficient and reliable as population continues to grow and And we expect that growth to continue and perhaps level off about mid-century. We also know that many forms of energy that we consume, not just fossil fuels, but many others, probably aren't expansive enough or reliable enough, whether it be for political or economic reasons, to carry us all the way through that growth. And even if they are, we want to have a nice diversified portfolio of sources of energy supply that make us more efficient and allow us to run a more active and healthier economy. So the answer is trillions of dollars a year. And if we include energy and water, I can easily say that it's in excess of $5 trillion a year from today.
Do you think, I was going to ask, do you think that water and energy, with those companies and getting access to it, all of them want everybody to be more efficient in the use of it? For example, when the water districts say, hey, there's a drought, we want you to cut back on water, and they do water budgets and all of that, and they wind up selling less money to the water agencies, for example. But the water agencies still have to keep their operations open. They still have to have their treatment plants, their people, and so forth. How does that mix with the public? Because when they keep raising prices to use less of it, and the water agencies have to have money to run, where's the connection to that? How can they work together for that? I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, and this feeds right into what I was hoping to talk about, Robert. This is how I would approach the same question. I would say, where are we now in terms of what I would call a situation of scarcity and deficit in fresh water, and where are we going? And most importantly, how are we going to get there? Today, in my opinion, there's no doubt we in the United States and the rest of the world face a structural deficit in fresh water supply. Population is still growing. The emerging economies are getting wealthier. They're going to want more food. They're going to want richer food. It's going to require more water to grow. This is despite the fact that cities across the West Coast in the U.S. and throughout Western Europe have become about twice as water efficient as they were 25 years ago. But the economy is growing so fast, the population has grown so much, we're going to be in a state of structural deficit throughout the rest of my lifetime, probably more than a generation. Wow. That's Exhibit A. Exhibit B is there's an increasingly popular school of thought amongst economists and political thinkers that's grounded in a concept they call abundance. And that concept relies on an assumption that holds that if we can just figure solar out in a way that scales up massively from today, perhaps with panels in space, perhaps with panels in places on Earth that we wouldn't even contemplate today, at much higher levels of efficiency, we're going to crack the scarcity paradigm. We're going to have electricity so abundant and so accessible 24/7 that we no longer need to worry about that. In water, the analogous example is if we can just crack desalination, instead of operating from a position of deficit or scarcity, we're going to be operating from a position of effectively limitless supply. Yeah. And that's going to change the paradigm. It's going to make power and water cheaper, and everything's going to be great. And that may be. I wouldn't argue that's impossible. But what I would say is there's an awful lot of transition between here and there. For the foreseeable future, there are a broad range of investments that we as a society need to make throughout the water cycle: supply, transportation, treatment, consumption efficiency, that will cost trillions of dollars that we need to get really serious about right now. Right. And that will cost money. Bills are going to go up very, very sharply in most of the major population centers around the world.
So going back to desalination, one of the things, a couple of things. One, it uses a lot of electricity. Two, creates brine. And do you see companies trying to develop or crack that? Where what can you do with the brine? Can you make something out of the brine? Because it's useful. Can you resell it to be something different? And the same with electric. There was a company I think I mentioned to you called Ocean Well that was on our show a couple months ago, and we were talking to them, and they do this now underground in the ocean, the bottom of the ocean, and it generates its own power and everything else, and it's supposed to be miraculous. They're doing a pilot up in Northern California. I forget the city where they're doing it, but do you see more companies? I know there's companies that do filtration and filters and all of this kind of stuff, and there's hundreds of them, thousands of them, and we've had a lot of them on our show. Do you see that that's a need that's going to come as an offshoot of the main systems to help develop something like that?
I absolutely do. And by the way, I on your suggestion, went back and listened to your Ocean Well podcast, which I thought was fascinating. What an ingenious solution. It seems to tick all the boxes. That it's energy efficient, it uses pressure instead of electricity. If it has a highly concentrated discharge, it's not particularly damaging because it happens at such great depths.
Right.
Eyesores, big eyesore-ish desalination plants on our beautiful beaches. But what an ingenious idea. I've never met Ocean Well, but I have talked to people familiar with them, and the feedback I've had has been very positive from an investor's perspective. I should hasten to add that I'm giving no investment advice at all. I'm just telling you that I have indeed heard about them and have been impressed.
Yeah.
Let me come back and answer your question more directly. As you both know better than I do, there are many, many approaches to desalinization from a technology perspective. I recently met a company called Citos Water, which I think is very interesting. It uses no membrane. Instead, it uses a continuous liquid-liquid extraction process to reduce the volume of wastewater. There's zero liquid discharge. There's no highly concentrated brine that's a byproduct of the process. Instead, it produces only neutralized, easily landfillable or reusable solid waste. It can be used in chemical manufacture and various other processes. And I think I suspect it'll be a very important technology for the treatment of mainstream desalinization, which does indeed produce large volumes of very, very salty water. It's at its best, the Citos technology, when it's treating very, very high brine concentrations up to and above, say, 10 times what salt water has. So I need to learn more. I haven't thoroughly researched the technology, but it seems to fit very nicely as a complement to the technologies that we've already been talking about.
I know, and I talked to some people in the state of Oklahoma, and they do fracking there as well as other areas. But the governor was talking about creating a law that when you do fracking, you have to produce water from there, drinkable water from there. And that's going to be a requirement for any big oil or gas company who's going to come in and do fracking, because they want to see that anything that you take out, you need to be able to put back something that's purified and goes back into the system. So that, and that's going to be the first. I believe that will be the first state in the nation that's going to have a law like that. So, all these other companies, like the membrane companies and the filters and all that, they're going to play a big role in this thing. And they're all fighting for position right now because that's the big deal. Water is great. Desal is wonderful, but the desal water, like the one in San Diego, down in Carlsbad and San Diego, they worry about the cost per liter of water or gallon of water because it's more than what the regular water agencies are pulling out of the ground now. And everybody thinks that if you have treated water or you use the purple pipes to put in those types of water, that you should drink non-potable water, that it's cheap. Well, after a while, I got to believe, and from the people I've talked to, non-potable water is going to get to be the same price as regular drinking water. So that's, unless there's some new things that they can come up with, it's going to be tough the next generation. And I think you're right in what you said in the opening about, having these things, they want more efficient and resilient freshwater systems, and that's the most important thing. And it's a long-term investment, like power, technology, geopolitics, human health, all of that rolls into one. And everybody wants it now. And I think technology in the last 50 years or 100 years, it used to take 20 years for something new to come out. Now it's like every 6 months. It's amazing. And I'm starting to see. Do you see a lot of private and public consortiums work together to do that? Do you think that the partnering is going to help that out, or should they do more of that, or where do you see that?
Whatever one's thoughts are on fossil fuels, I think there's very much of a benefit from the use of fossil fuels as it relates to putting large investments into treating water. And I think that for a couple of reasons. First of all, as I'm sure you've talked about on your show in the past, underground aquifers across the United States, not just in the West, but in places like the Mississippi River Valley, in places like Long Island, in aquifers that serve most of the state of Florida, our groundwater levels, or aquifer levels, are depleting quickly enough that definitely within the next 15 to 20 years, we're going to have to start injecting and recharging them in much greater volume than we do today. And the question that arises is, where does the feedstock for that recharge come from? Sometimes we can manage water supply and seasonality, fluctuations in rainfall to help us with that. But if we look to cities in other parts of the world, Berlin being a great example, Los Angeles being a great example, treated wastewater is going to be a primary source for recharging aquifers.
Yep.
I think that the technologies that are being developed right now in the fracking fields of West Texas are going to be really important and have follow-on benefits for treating wastewater in a more efficient way, such that it can be used to recharge groundwater aquifers in a way that's going to be existentially necessary. So one consolation of fracking, if you don't like it, is that the amount of investment that's going to be associated with the Texas law that you mentioned is going to be very impactful, in my opinion, and it's going to have benefits that help us out in other parts of the water system.
Chris, what are your comments on what you see as
Tom, I'd like to go back to and talk just a little bit about the concept you mentioned earlier, the scarcity to abundance trajectory that you were talking about. And optimistic as you are, Rob and I join you as well. But I mean, that's going to require changing global water systems, right? It's gonna present a need for large-scale infrastructure upgrades, and so I guess from a standpoint of Veritas and your investors, there's an opportunity for them, all the innovation that's coming, but there's also a lot of challenges, right? Political challenges, scarcity challenges. There's risk everywhere. So you guys at Veritas, you look at solving these structural deficits and looking at companies with the background and entrepreneurialism and the innovation to do that. That's what you do, right?
That's right.
And on the concept, and so taking that just a little bit further, what do you look for to ensure success? What do you look for in these companies and in this innovation? What key things do you look for to ensure success?
And what's the hottest market and entity that you would be looking at, if you can tell us?
So what we're always looking for at the highest level are two things. We want technologies that, if they're not already commercially proven, are so convincing in what their pilot projects have shown that we're able to develop a ton of confidence that their technology is going to succeed. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the technology can't just be successful in isolation. What are the collateral effects of the technology? For example, is it so expensive that it's going to make water unaffordable for the populations it serves?
Mm-hmm.
Can't have that. Does it use excessive amounts of energy to make it work, which in the foreseeable future will create other problems that might be at least as big as the one related to water that we're trying to solve? You can't have that. We're looking for technologies and management teams that have developed solutions that are hugely successful in their primary objective. It might be water treatment, it might be leak identification and repair, it might be taking water from the air, and that don't have collateral effects that more than offset, or that even largely offset the primary benefit. I don't know if that answers your question, but we try to be as global and holistic as we can when we think about the net impact of technology on the system.
How do you find some of these companies? I mean, because there's lots of little companies that we've run into. I mean, working for Toro, I can tell you how many people come at a trade show to our booth and, hey, I got this product. You're interested in it? and yeah, I understand they're marketing. It's a small little entity, and all companies like our size go out and find other companies and buy them and invest in them. But is there special places they can go except for trade shows to hawk their products to somebody and look for investment?
Well, one of the few consolations of being around the market for 35 years is you get to know a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
So I'm constantly reconnecting with folks that I've worked with in different parts of the market, in different parts of the world. We share ideas. When we find interesting ones, we try to work together on them. I do go to a lot of trade shows. That's been very fruitful. I've met a lot of really interesting and I think well-positioned companies. There are trade organizations. There's one here based in the Bay Area called Imagine H2O, which you may have met before.
Yes.
Yeah.
That, for lack of a better term, incubates small and promising water solution startups. There are a few other examples like that. But really, it's every public forum focused on solutions that I can get myself to, plus a lot of maintaining mutually beneficial professional relationships that I've had over the decades.
Awesome. We'd love to have some of the companies that maybe you've invested in come on and talk about their technology and just show, how did the relation start with you and them and how successful they're becoming. And I think it's great for our audience to hear that. And we have a lot of listeners who are inventors and scientists and things and small little companies who even big companies listen to us, but I think that might be helpful for you too.
I would look forward to that. I think that would make for a really interesting discussion, and more important, it would give the deserved exposure to these entrepreneurs and innovators who are going to help us manage this huge process. Excellent.
How can people get a hold of you?
Well, you can go to my website, which is veritusadvisors.com, and I just want to clarify one thing, if I could, Robert. While I have invested for the vast majority of my career, Veritas is a consultant to these companies. It doesn't invest directly in them. Instead, it works with them on how to put on a game plan, on an execution plan to bring their product to market, and how best to pay for that, how to capitalize themselves. I work with plenty of investors, and certainly I'm still very much in touch with that community.
Yeah. I can tell you as an engineer, I'm good at doing the design work, but running the business, that's not my thing. And I wouldn't want to do it. And I wouldn't want to. So the world needs people. I mean, in my era when growing up, people who started the business, when they didn't make the numbers to their investment people, then the investment company got to own the company afterwards. But they put a person who understood how to run a business in that, not worry about the electronic components on the circuit board and things like that. So that's you play a super role for that. That's really important. Anyway, we're getting close to the news hour. We got to turn it over to NBC. We want to thank you very much. I'll give you a call back in a little bit and talk about a couple other things. And we appreciate you coming on, and we want to have you back and talk some more.
My pleasure, Robert. My pleasure, Chris. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thanks for being on, Tom.
And for our listeners.
Take care.
For listeners, one thing Chris and I always remind you at the end of our show is please help keep our planet
blue.
Because if you like blue, you got to have green. And actually, if you have green, you got to have blue as well. It goes hand in hand. Have a good week for everybody and stay cool. And I know back east in the East Coast, it's sweltering out there in the hundreds, and we got it out here in Phoenix, and Chris is getting it in California. So keep cool this weekend, stay safe, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks.
NBC News on KCAA.